We know everyone loves the service fees when you're trying to buy a ticket at Ticketmaster. So right now I'm looking at a ticket for Blake Shelton at Amway Center coming up. It's a $100 ticket and there's a $23 service fee, a $2.95 processing fee, and sales tax on top for a city-owned venue. What are all these fees? What is it all going towards? Welcome everyone back for another episode to Making with Chris G. I'm really excited to have one of my favorite guests back, Ari Herstand. He's a musician that started out as a touring musician, building a lot of success as a DIY musician, and that success led to musicians asking him for advice, to him giving so much advice to where he didn't have time to respond to every single email, and that led to the amazing blog aristake.com. Definitely check that out, which led to one of my favorite books, How to Make It in the New Music Business. And he just released the third edition in January. And if you are an artist, you want to learn about artist management, you want to get into being an A&R, this all my students have to start with that book. Like, I will not even answer a single question until you start with that book. That is the must read. So read that. And yeah, and then also real quick, another quick plug for Ari. He also has an Ari's Take Academy, amazing courses taught by real professionals with real life experience in the music industry, anything from registering your royalties to getting more streams on Spotify to how to market your music the right way to sync placements. Amazing courses. So definitely check that out at academy.com. If you want to learn the promoter venue side, I'm your guy. If you're doing anything artist related, go to Ari. That is the place to be. But I'm really excited to have Ari Herstand back on the show. Ari, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. That was a very nice intro. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's dive right in. We have done 2 episodes. People can check those out if they want to learn your backstory. I would love to hear from your experience, kind of the artist perspective on working with venues that use Ticketmaster fees, and everything else. I'm gonna start kind of vague, and then we can kind of dive in. But just share, I guess, whatever you'd like to share from your experience in dealing with Ticketmaster and all these fees. And I don't know. Like, Clyde did this. We shared this video from Clyde Lawrence, where he talked about I forget the price, but like a $40 ticket to where he only ends up getting $12.50 a ticket after all expenses and fees and everything. But anyways, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, first off, just for reference, everyone, if you haven't watched the testimony of Clyde Lawrence testifying in front of the Senate, the U.S. Senate, from just a few weeks ago, look that up. It's on YouTube. It's on Lawrence the band's Instagram. I posted on my Ari Herstand Instagram too, if you want to just go there and check it out. Basically, I mean, this all came to be because when Ticketmaster put the Taylor Swift tour on sale and the Swifties crashed the site and there was all, they essentially came together and sued Ticketmaster. Now, but there was also, like, simultaneously, unrelated to the Taylor Swift thing, Clyde Lawrence wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, and it got people talking about this. It's just like, an issue that has been around for, honestly, a long time now, since Live Nation and Ticketmaster merged. The idea of, is it a monopoly? And if there's a monopoly in the marketplace, it reduces competition and really takes all the power away from the consumer, but really the artist. And that's the issue that artists are dealing with right now, is just like, because Live Nation owns or operates so many venues in the country. Every Live Nation venue uses Ticketmaster. A lot of non-Live Nation venues use Ticketmaster too. And if the venue doesn't use Ticketmaster, a Live Nation venue pretty much has to use Ticketmaster, and if they don't, Live Nation, they say, he was the head of Live Nation was quoted saying, "We're going to go nuclear on you if you don't use Ticketmaster, and you don't use our ticketing service." So they have so much power, and they will retaliate against you if you're a venue or a promoter and you're not using Ticketmaster. So the issue is, and this is what Clyde brought up, what we don't think about. So as an artist, when we're booking a show at a venue, and I did this, if you're booking a show, let's say it's a Live Nation venue, and Live Nation, mind you, they own or operate venues as small as like 200, 250 cap, all the way up to arenas. So we're not just talking about the superstars here. We're like, we have to deal with them. Like, the Echo in LA is a Live Nation owned venue. The Brooklyn Bowl in, Philly or New York or Nashville, like that's Live Nation. They like, you might think they're independent. They used to be independent. Echo used to be independent. Brooklyn Bowl used to be independent, but like Live Nation is starting to like own and run these venues. So the issue is like, we book a show, and let's say it's, we're going to say it's a $15 ticket. And so the deal that we might have with the venue, we'll talk on the small side. Let's say we're not working with guarantees. Let's say like, all right, you're going to get a deal that I just did with an LA based room. It's 250 cap room. And LA, the deals aren't as great as you're going to find around the other country because it's so saturated here. But the deal was for 21 plus show at a 250 cap club here. It's the artist gets 60%. And this was like their standard deal. They're because it's LA and it's because it's this high in demand venue. They don't really negotiate. I also don't work for Wasserman. So, I don't have the power to be like, well, you better give us a better deal or you're not getting any of my artists.
Right.
So it's like, I'm just, representing one artist. So it's 60% or you get a 10% bonus at sellout. So let's just look at the economics here.
Real quick, Ari, is it
60%
after facility fee and tax?
So so let's talk about that. So it's 60% of just the face value ticket. So the face value ticket is $15. So the artist is only going to get 60% of $15. Now, when you go on the website and you're looking at the show is for sale. It's $15 is what the ticket price is. They publicly show that, but everybody knows that it's never going to be just $15 that the consumer is going to pay. You have to add on all these fees. And at the end of the day, this show, that's a $15 show on Ticketmaster, is Ticketmaster is adding on $7.50 of fees. 50% fees are getting added to this ticket. So the consumer in the end pays $22.50 for a ticket in advance, whereas like the artist is only getting 60% of the $15. So those, I'll leave it to you, Chris, to tell me. I don't know where those fees go. I don't know like what the $7.50 is or where it's supposed to go. But all I know as the artist is I'm only getting 60% of the $15 or 70% if we sell it out of the $15. Now, I had to go through a little calculation and negotiation with this because it's like, all right, well, because now what is the incentive for the fan to buy in advance if it's actually going to be cheaper at the door if you show up and just pay them right there because you don't have to pay any of the facility fees or any of the service fees or any of that other stuff. So what we did was basically saying, all right, it's going to be 15 in advance, 20 day of, even though it's still cheaper to buy it at the door because it's $22.50 when it's at the end of the day. But it's like someone would pay like, $250 as like insurance that they're actually going to get that ticket. Whereas like if it's, $750 additional, they're like, well, I'll take my chances. And it's LA. Most people don't buy in advance anyways here. So I've seen people do now calculating this. I've seen people do $15 advance, 25 day of, because they're like with those service fees, they're still, it's going to be mildly cheaper in advance, but they don't want people, they want to prevent people from, they want to encourage people rather to buy in advance. But I'm curious, where those fees go.
Yeah, and then $25, right, might discourage a fan to go support unfortunately a local artist or an indie artist because now it becomes too much money. A quick before we get into the fees, quick questions too. So for artists listening, right? So one thing you should always ask for if you're working with I know House of Blues will do this. I don't know about if it's every Live Nation venue, but will they give you consignment tickets where you can? I mean, it sucks to have to go sell them by hand, right? It's really inconvenient. But will they offer you consignment tickets where you can sell them for $15 a piece? Was that an option?
The option that they gave us was you could have fan club tickets, is what they call them, but you get like I should actually pull up the offer. I don't remember how many we got. I think it was like maybe 10% of maybe not even 10%. I think it might have been 6% or something like that of like fan club tickets, but they would still charge us $1 on top per ticket that
What?
they would it's like it's bullshit. Like, I
It's
don't
such
really
bullshit.
understand. Yeah, they're like, "Okay, you can have 6% of these tickets to sell on your own or to give away or whatever, fan club tickets, to sell to your fans, but we're still taking a dollar on top of that," which is like, all right, I didn't really quite understand that.
So two potential workarounds, if that's an option, right? It's not gonna be an option everywhere, but is one, the consignment tickets. So get physical tickets. You can get creative, like you still sell it digitally, like maybe through Venmo or something, and then mail the tickets. It creates a little more work, which sucks. But
Ugh.
I know it creates a whole lot of work, but that's a way to get around that 750 on top. Or depending what your state's laws are, if the $15 ticket is being advertised, it's technically false advertising, right? If you can't buy the ticket anywhere for $15. So at the box office, which again, very inconvenient, probably especially in LA, to drive to the box office to buy a ticket. But at the box office, there should be no fees.
There's no box office for these
For these
I'm
clubs, yeah. Okay.
there. Yeah, I mean, there's no. We're talking 250 cap. They're
Sure.
closed. Like, I don't. I'm. That's actually an interesting thought.
Do
I'm
they use any
curious.
record stores where they sell consignment tickets?
No, not that I know of, but,
Wow. Okay.
record stores. Where are the record stores? Any record stores still open around you,
In
Chris?
Florida, yes. We have Park Ave CDs, an
Okay,
amazing
okay.
independent record
Yeah,
store. That's
we got a couple, but, no, I think, no, none of the record stores here sell tickets, but, that I know of. I'd be curious, and this is actually something I didn't look into or I could ask them about. They didn't tell us about it. Um, could a fan drive to the venue on another night that there's
a
another
showing.
show happening and say, "Hey, I want to buy a ticket to this show in a month from now. Can I
Mhm.
buy that from you right now?" I don't know if they would do that. Maybe, and
Yeah.
then that gets you around the fee. I haven't thought about that. That's something interesting. I didn't know it was.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. All fan club pre-sales are limited to 10% of sellable capacity and carry a $1 fee on top of ticket price.
Such bullshit.
So that's what they.
So
Yeah,
so let's talk about a 750 fee. So one, I actually was trying to do the research quickly before we jumped on
yeah.
the call, but I couldn't find anything quick enough. But I have done this research in the past, right? So one interesting thing too. So I'm curious to know if your artist is playing another Ticketmaster venue. But one thing I've noticed in the past is if the same artist is playing a Live Nation venue and then another venue that uses Ticketmaster, the service fee at the Live Nation venue is actually always lower because Live Nation gets a bigger cut from that service fee, right? So
Oh.
in that judiciary committee hearing, the Ticketmaster guy talked about that the venue, so the artist sets the price, which is true across. I believe even like at an indie level, local level, artists can still say I want to sell my tickets for $10, $15.
Yep.
But even at the larger scale, so like when Taylor Swift uses dynamic pricing or Bruce Springsteen uses dynamic pricing, it's someone on their team allowing that to happen.
Can you
Um,
explain what dynamic pricing means?
Sure, yeah. So dynamic pricing is pretty much basically an algorithm or AI, whatever they use, some kind of technology they're using on their website, right? And when you go to buy a ticket, it's basically like a supply and demand thing. So the more people are in that waiting room, so when it's like shows you have 15 minutes until you buy your ticket, the 30 minutes until you buy your ticket, the more people are in the waiting room, the more demand it creates, right? Or the more people are traffickers flowing to the website, or maybe the more people are checking the website leading up to the on sale. It shows how much demand there is for the ticket. So basically, what dynamic pricing does automatically, it's an algorithm or AI, whatever the technology they use, that is changing the ticket pricing, right? So back in the day, this was called flexing. So
Mm.
venues had to go do this manually. So like a lot of theaters would have it in their offers that they are allowed to flex prices, but it's not to like unlimited prices. It would be they could flex a P1. So let's say your P1 is $100 and your P2 is $75, right? So P1 being price point one, price point two. So that would
Ah,
mean they could flex a $75 ticket to 100. So if the first 3 rows are 100, the next 10 rows are at 75. If there's a lot of demand, they could flex the 75s to 100. Um, and but they had to do it all manually, right? So someone could still beat the person doing it manually, where now it happens in milliseconds, right? So you could have so much demand and so much traffic to the site where now they take what's on paper on the offer, maybe a $500 ticket for front row, now gets flexed to 3,000, 5,000, which is insane now what they're paying. And that ticket might, if it sells, they'll continue flexing the tickets around it.
wow.
And then once they stop selling, they'll start getting flexed down. So you could pay $2,500 for a ticket, sit next to a person that paid 1,000, and they sit next to a person that paid 750.
And these are all still the primary ticketing market. This is not secondary. This is not the resale thing that Ticketmaster has on there. You're saying
This,
this
yeah,
this is what dynamic pricing is?
this is all primary. Yes, it's dynamic pricing or
Wow.
platinum ticketing is what they call this. And the reason it all started, right, is it was a way to beat the scalpers. So
Right.
artists started complaining that if you sell a $200 ticket and now it gets sold on StubHub for 1,000, the scalper made 800 on a ticket, and then 200 goes to pay for the venue, the promoter, the artist, the tour manager, right, all the expenses to come along with that. So they were trying to figure out a system to where that money can go to the artist, the $1,000 instead of to the scalper. So
Right.
that's when dynamic pricing and or platinum ticketing came into place. So Live Nation created this technology to increase the pot, so the pot's bigger, so the artist actually gets a bigger cut from the actual
Yeah.
ticket. And there's a way around that too, which we can get into later. So you could there's now technology out there where you can sell tickets without using dynamic pricing, with keeping the ticket price set and never being able to be scalped. But real quick on the service fees.
Yeah.
So that 750 fee. So in that judiciary committee hearing, they talked about the artist sets the price, right? So the artist
Yep.
can agree to or not allow dynamic pricing. So whenever dynamic pricing is there, someone on the artist team said yes. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the artist, but at least the manager and
Yeah.
agent said yes. The service fee, the Ticketmaster guy said it's controlled by the venue, right? Which is true, but what about if it's a Ticketmaster or a Live Nation venue, and it's technically Live Nation also controlling the service fee? So what Ticketmaster does in their contracts, and every ticketing company does this, like everyone's guilty. Access does this, Eventbrite does this, tickets.com,
Right.
they all do it, where they have a base service fee that they charge as their fee. And then the promoter, depending how much leverage they have, they can negotiate with their ticketing company to increase that fee. And that is called a ticket rebate. So the promoter basically gets a cut. When the Take a Fly days were around and we were at the plaza, you could keep it as simple as like a $1 to $15 ticket gets $1 rebate added on top, 15 to 25 gets $2 added on top. It was simple like that. Now they're using percentages, right? So now a percentage gets added on top. From what I've seen, this is not across the board everywhere. So don't take, like, whoever's listening, don't take this as like concrete truth, but like what I've seen, about half of that fee goes to the venue. So if it's a 750 fee, at least half of that will go to the Live Nation venue you're working with, and the other half will go to Ticketmaster. And if it's Live Nation venue, maybe even a little bit more, since it's Live Nation owns it, right? So maybe they'll get 60 to 80% of that.
Wait a minute. So this show that I just booked at this 250 cap club in LA. Now this is not a Live Nation venue
Okay.
that I booked it at, but they still use Ticketmaster. Actually, I don't know. I don't think it's a Live Nation venue. So they've bought up so many venues, I can't actually tell anymore which is which. But I don't think it is, but it fucking could be. But either way, regardless, we're only getting 60% of the tickets sold of the face value of the $15. You're saying that of that 750, the venue is taking half of that?
Could be up to half, yeah. So I don't know exactly what it is. Depends on what their deal is and how long they've been using Ticketmaster.
That's
so let's say
fucking bullshit, because so I'm only getting
yeah.
we're only getting
It is bullshit.
60%, and then the venue is getting the 40% of our tickets, and they're taking the
Some kind of
service
cut.
fee, which we
Some kind of
can't
cut from the
even,
service fee.
yeah, some kind of cut of the service fee, which we have no say in that. They're
Mhm.
also taking $1 on top of the fan club tickets if we want to have that to sell. And here's the kicker: they're taking 10% of merch. And that was non-negotiable. Like I negotiated with that, or I tried. I was just like, okay, can we strike the merch fee? This is, it's a small indie band. Like we're playing your 250 cap club. Can we strike the merch cut? Like they're like, no, this is standard for all of our shows. I'm like, okay, you want 10% of our merch? Can we get 10% of the bar? I literally asked them, like, can we get 10% of the bar then? Because we're bringing in the audience. Like, this is our fans. They're coming to drink. Like, let's get 10% of the bar. Like, no, we can't do that.
What you could try to negotiate is, I mean, it's weird, right? Because like you're the artist in this scenario, but not necessarily a promoter. But a lot of venues will do what's called a promoter bump, or a promoter rebate, where from every ticket you sell, so instead of asking for a bar, people tend to get defensive right away when someone asks for a bar cut. So which is stupid, I know, especially when they're taking a percentage from merch.
Taking merch. I got defensive when you say you want to take some of my merch. What the fuck?
Yeah, but what you could try to negotiate is So have like some kind of so you're the promoter, right? So you say, hey, we're self-promoting. There's no promoter involved. So
Right.
can you give us a promoter rebate, $1? So start with $2 a ticket. Can you give us $2 for every ticket that gets sold as a promoter rebate? Um, and then if your bar, and then just ask for the world in the beginning, right? So ask for a $2 per ticket promoter rebate, 250 cap venue. So let's say $10 a head at the bar is a decent bar for that size venue, so 2,500 bucks. So maybe if your bar makes over 2,500, then we get a $3 per ticket promoter rebate. So it's like a way of not asking for the kind of asking for a cut of the bar without asking for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and start there, right? And then if they still say no, then yeah, just
Yeah, I mean,
shitty venue.
these are good tactics. The challenge with LA venues, especially dealing directly with the managers setting the show up, versus like, again, Wasserman or a big
Right,
agent, is like
right. CA William
they don't
Morris.
budge very much. I got them to waive the $50 haze fee that they wanted to charge us.
What?
So,
They want to
oh
charge
yeah,
you to use haze?
they charge $50 to use haze. They have
Wow.
lights set up in there, and if you want their LD, it's $200. So you got to pay $200 for their LD, and then $50 on top if you want haze, not to mention all of the other fees. So it's like they find every which way to shake down the artist for every, little bit.
Insane.
And it's nuts because it's not just happening at the big venues. It's happening. This is a 250 cap venue, and they're find ways to shake them down for everywhere. I didn't know about this promoter rebate thing, which is
Oh yeah,
interesting.
and it's all ticketing companies. So that's not just the Ticketmaster thing. Access does this. Eventbrite does it. Hold My Ticket. Like any ticketing company that's out there, they all do the promoter rebate thing.
But I mean, obviously you have to ask for it, and that's
Sure.
like, and what is it? Just means like they're just going to give you an additional dollar or $2 a ticket because we're
The
promoting it.
so the promote. Yeah, I thought. Okay, so yeah, yes, because you're promoting it. Just ask for since you say, hey, we're self promoting. There's no promoter involved. Can we get a promoter rebate? A $1 or $2 per ticket. Yeah,
So that
that's
essentially
very
just
very common.
enhances the percentage. So instead of getting 60% per ticket, I mean, if you really just do the math here, normally I would be getting whoops. So 15 times 60, 15 times 60% equals $9 a ticket. So
Mhm.
you're essentially, if we got, let's say, $1 rebate, that would be $10 a ticket.
Mhm.
And so now we're getting 67% instead of
Right.
60%. So it's
Right.
like on one hand, you could say, can we up the split to 67%? But on the other hand, you
Right.
could say promote a rebate of $1, or,
Yeah.
and if it's
And you can even do
$2,
it. And you can even do it staggered, right? You can say, and I guess in that sense too, like you ask for a rebate, like if it's $1 per ticket, and if we had 100 tickets, it's $1.50. If we had 200 tickets, it's $2. I mean, it's
yeah,
something you could try to ask for, or just even do a percentage that reverts. That's essentially the same thing. So you can say maybe it's 60% at dollar from $1. At
yeah,
150 tickets, it's 65%, and then at 200 tickets, it's 70%, or sellout is 70%. A
yeah.
lot of agents do that.
Yeah,
All the
we have the 10% bump at sellout.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's 70% at sellout, but yeah.
So if you can maybe try to in future negotiate a middle bump in there as well. So like once you get 150 tickets, it goes to
Cool,
65. Yeah, you can
cool.
have a revert multiple. I've had deals when I was at House of Blues that reverted like 3 or 4 times. Like it would start
Oh,
at
wow.
50 and go all the way up to like 70%.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
cool,
yeah.
cool.
But yeah, the service fees. So yeah, the venues will take a cut of those service fees most of the time. Not always. If the service fees like really low, like if it's hold my ticket and it's $2 or $3, it's probably all going to them. But once you
To
start
who?
going but to the ticketing company.
Oh.
But once it starts going above like $2 or $3, then usually yes, it means the venue's getting
Yeah, because like
a rebate.
Eventbrite, is like 250 $2.50 a ticket or
Mhm.
something. That's the Eventbrite fee.
Yes.
And so that's obviously, that's the most transparent out there, because like I've done shows where we sold tickets on Eventbrite, and we saw um and Eventbrite gives you the option. It's like, do you want the fan to pay for this, or do you want to eat it?
Right.
Or do you want, so because you can set tickets on Eventbrite for $15, and then the
Mhm.
fan pays $15, but you're only making, uh 12.50 or something like that. And or you can just add a 250 fee on top of the ticket, which in comparison to all the other fees is fine. And that's like why, if you're running your own events, it's best to use something like Eventbrite, which,
Right.
you know, is only $250 of a ticket. Or if you want to get real creative, like you said, do Venmo tickets or something
Yeah.
like that where there's no fees, but
Yeah.
that's a little bit more complicated to set that up. But yeah.
Yeah. It's a little more. I see like a lot of hip hop artists doing that, where they're all about like hustling and selling
Well,
their.
you can also, if you have a Bandzoogle website,
Yeah, you do it
You
there.
can sell tickets on Bandzoogle. They don't take a commission at
Perfect.
all, so there's no fees there. So I've actually done events on and used Bandzoogle as ticketing as well, and that you get around fees. So there's ways to get around fees too if you're
Yeah.
doing your own events.
Now, like quickly on the larger scale, right? So like the Taylor Swifts of the world. One thing I shared in the last video I did is now when you have artists that size, stadium size, like U2, it's definitely known that U2 gets 102% of ticket sales, right? So it's like, what's that 2%? Like, what does that money come from? Obviously, there's some other money floating around. So that's essentially they're getting a cut from whatever other revenue that Live Nations bring in. That's a Live Nation tour. So of course we know they're getting a cut from the ticket service fees, right? They're getting Michael Pino's on record being pretty transparent that they're three main revenue streams. So it's not tickets, right? So even if they got, let's say 30% of the ticket or 15% of the ticket at that scale, their profit margin, and this is pretty true, is like 0 to 3% from tickets. It's really low, which is why they find other ways to make revenue, right? So he's pretty transparent that their three main revenue streams is service fees, it's sponsorships, and ancillary revenue. So what's ancillary revenue? It could be cut from merch. And yes, if the venue takes cut from merch and there's a promoter, that's probably shared with the promoter. So cut from merch. What else? Any concessions they might take a cut from, parking, right? So any other revenue that there is, or their money they're taking from fans, the promoter's probably getting a cut from that. So that's why U2 will take 102%. Now, I don't know if this is technically on record anywhere publicly, but I used to work for the company that promotes Taylor Swift, and I've been told that they share every revenue that they get, they share with their artists, right? So this is kind of the thing that I'm worried about with this whole dismantling. I mean, yes, I'm all for dismantling Ticketmaster and Live Nation, but the red flag that I raise is let's make sure we don't create another monopoly, which is AEG and Access, right? So AEG, second biggest promoter in the world, they actually manage more venues than Live Nation does, and big venues. Like Live Nation is the venue operator for like arenas, stadiums, and amphitheaters. They have over 350 venues that they operate. It's usually much bigger venues than Live Nation has, and it's a company called ASM or SMG. So if you ever see that, you know it's owned by AEG, and then AEG is technically operating the venue. And then Access is their ticketing platform, which is slowly working its way to becoming the second biggest ticketing company in the world. Taylor Swift is promoted by Messina Touring Group, which is owned by AEG.
Ah.
So that's the worry I have, right? Because I read this Billboard article where it's talked about is Taylor Swift sabotaging Ticketmaster and Live Nation. It didn't really go into the AEG part of it, but I was like, could this be happening? Because she's been with Messina Group from pretty much from day one.
Wait, then why did if that's the fact, why was she doing a Live Nation tour using tickets sold on Ticketmaster, which crashed the Ticketmaster site? Why wouldn't they use the Access ticketing platform?
Great question. So it's not a Live Nation tour. It's a Messina Group Touring Group tour, but the venues they're playing in, and that's kind of the issue that they were talking about in that Judiciary Committee meeting, is the venues are signing exclusive deals, right? So if so the arenas and stadiums she's playing, most of those stadiums still use Ticketmaster. And they have 3, 5, 7 year long contracts with Ticketmaster. So until those contracts are up, it'll be interesting to see what happens then. Now that Access is a big player, will Access actually replace Ticketmaster in some of these stadiums that are AEG operated? And I did some research outside of the 20 venues she's playing, 5 of them or as ASM operated. So those 5 could potentially flip to Access in the future. Then the other issue I have with all this, so I'm all about sticking it to the man. So I have this bet go to my students where I can't shop on Amazon for as long as possible. So if you get Ari's book, I know so you can sell it directly from your website. So buy it there. Don't get it on Amazon.
I don't have to tell it from my website. But you can
no.
you can buy it at any bookstore, so any local
Okay.
bookstore, Barnes and Noble, whatever. But yeah, no, we
Okay.
don't. I don't actually have the ability to sell it myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought okay. But anyways, where was I? So, 15 of the venues are some type of government that actually owns the venues, which means it's a city, state, or a county that owns the venues, which means the governments are signing exclusive contracts with Ticketmaster. So it's a government created monopoly essentially,
Yeah.
and if most of these venues are paid for by tax dollars, and these government owned venues are charging you a service fee from which they get a cut from, which technically is double taxation. And that's the part I have a massive issue with.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, that's a good point for a lawyer to pick up and sue on that behalf, is you're not
Yeah.
allowed double taxation. But I mean, I think the big thing is just like, because Ticketmaster has essentially created this monopoly in the space, because so many venues are bound by their contracts to
Right.
use Ticketmaster for so long. I mean, I think it would be beneficial to just like pass a law that, I mean, you're getting into business practices, but like these fees should just be more transparent or removed. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's just like, the capitalist side of the argument is, well, you can add in as high a fee as someone's willing to pay. It's supply
Right.
and demand, basic
Right. Yeah.
economics. And it's just like, if they've negotiated it, then, but like, I can tell you that as someone trying to negotiate on the artist's behalf, is like, you can't negotiate that fee away.
Yeah.
Like, there
No, you
is
can't.
no negotiating with the Ticketmaster fee. Like, we don't
Right.
have a say in that. We can't say, well, can you knock that fee down to
Mhm.
$3.50 a ticket? Or it's like, no,
Right.
it's just like set. So
Not if
uh
you're an indie artist or smaller artist. If you're, I think I'm trying. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what's public and what's not. But like Morrissey, I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Morrissey, for example.
yeah.
Um, Usually when he plays a venue, I don't know if it's happening currently, but in the past, he's actually his agent will refuse to have for service fees on his shows. And it's a giant pain. The venues make a giant fuss about it, but it can be waived, even on Ticketmaster. There is a
Well,
way, but it cuts into
I'm
their
curious.
profit
I
margin.
mean, for everyone listening, let's do a little like experiment.
Sure.
Go to any venue in your hometown that uses Ticketmaster and just start clicking through and trying to buy a ticket for every show over the next 3 weeks. Calculate what the service fees are. I've started doing that. I haven't
Mm.
seen service fees waived on any show, not even
No.
waived.
Yeah.
I'm talking, they're almost identical. Like,
Yeah.
I'm looking at a show.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, the $17 ticket or $18 ticket is like $7.50. The $15
It's
ticket is $6.25. It's like, it's almost like it's like,
it's extremely rare. I mean, I would
yeah,
say
I've never
from
heard of that.
when I was at AEG, we did 650 shows a year, and I would say out of those, maybe 1 to 3 shows would
Oh,
fight for
yeah,
it.
and so
Like,
it's
it's
just
extremely rare. Yeah.
right, yeah, but no indie artist has that kind of clout.
No. Yeah, yeah.
It's like and managers booking or whatever, the agents, even, but yes, that's if you're at U2 level, you can get 102%. If you're at Taylor Swift level, you can demand whatever
You
you
get a
want.
cut from the fees.
That's the top,
Yeah.
1% of 1%. It's like we're talking like that's why I love that Clyde Lawrence testified.
Mhm.
He is an indie band.
Yeah.
They play, they're playing mid-level clubs. They're playing 1 to 3,000 cap
Right.
rooms all over the country. And they I don't know if they're self-managed now. I know they've had a manager in the past, but like either way, Clyde clearly and Jordan, who's also in the band that they work this stuff out with. Jordan's also the tour manager, Jordan Cohen. He, they are very aware of the books and the deals and all of that stuff. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of like we don't have much negotiating power when it
No. Yeah.
comes to these promoters and venues.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, some of the things that artists can look at is trying to avoid playing venues that use Ticketmaster in the markets you can, right? It's not obviously
Good
some
luck.
markets. Yeah, obviously some markets is not a choice, but also be aware that Access is going to do the same thing. So Access will also have those crazy fees. I think I looked at some Access shows and the fees were 30 to 40% on tickets. It was a little bit lower, but still insane. Like 30 to 40%.
Yeah, and I mean, like Dice is a new ticketing company.
Mhm.
They still have fees. Like even there's this club in town, small club. I think it's 150, 175 cap.
Right.
And they were still charging. It was a $15 ticket. They were charging $4 fees,
Mhm.
so less than Ticketmaster, but not that much less.
Right.
And the difference was this is what was also kind of lame is like you went on the website, it said the tickets were 18.99, but when we negotiated the show, we were negotiating on a $15 ticket. So like we're only making a percentage of the $15, not the $18.99, not the $19 ticket,
Mhm.
even though the fan goes on the website and it says it's a $19 ticket. So also false
Right.
advertising.
Yeah.
But it's like who's going to really spend $10,000 to sue? I mean, it would have to be a
Right.
class action lawsuit.
Right.
So you'd have to get every artist that kind of played that and get a lawyer that's willing to
Yeah.
kind of go in that and say, no, you're false advertising. And then what? We want to put out a small local venue in town and like say,
Right.
no, like we don't want to bankrupt. That's the thing is it's like we're not looking to necessarily battle with these venues because they're like part of the community and the scene. It's just like, but, and I understand that it's like I've talked, some of my friends run venues in
Mhm.
town, and it's like I understand it's hard out there for
Yeah.
the venues too. So like they try to find ways to make a little bit more money to keep the venue open, and
Right.
this is a way for them to do it.
Mhm.
So like I can empathize a little bit with them on in that realm, but like taking the merch cut, I think is
Yeah.
total bullshit.
Mhm.
These
I
service
agree.
fees, split it with the artist or something, or just
Yeah.
don't have it. Like if you
Right.
want to tack on, I mean, just properly advertise,
Mhm.
and then be a little bit more transparent with all of this.
Yeah, completely agree. And yeah, so I guess just to have some solutions for indie. Where did I go? Um, Let me get my camera back. So just to have some solutions for indie artists, right? Um, I guess first option is ask for um a bump, right? So or a ticket rebate. Then second option is like ask for consignment tickets so you can sell your own tickets. And if there's no fee on those consignment tickets, hopefully not even a dollar fee. That's annoying. Um, Third option, see if there's anywhere where fans can go to buy tickets at face value. And then final option, if that's even an option, is not use a Ticketmaster venue. Then the merch stuff. I mean, and also negotiate reverting deals, right? So maybe it's 60% at the door, it reverts
Yeah.
to 65% after certain sales, reverts to 70 at sellout. So you could do the same with merch, right? So if merch is, let's say it's 10%, you could even say, hey, at 200 more, merch reverts to 95 or 5% to the
Mhm.
venue. And then at sellout, you can take no cut from the merch since you have now a sold out show at a bar, especially when your artist is, it's a drinking crowd. What genre is your artist that you work with?
Rock.
Rock. Okay. So prices are a little different these days than they used to be, but rock, probably anywhere from $8 to $12 a head at the bar, which is a really good number. I would assume something like a grassroots district, which is more that New Orleans, like kind of, I know our
Funk.
people, yeah, funk. Thank you, better word than I was about to use. I was about to say jam, which I know a lot
Not
of artists
jam.
say it, not jam,
Not jam.
but anything that's in that world, right? That New
Yeah.
Orleans funk, blues, soul,
Yeah.
tends to be one of the higher ones, 12 to 16 a head. Reggae is somewhere anywhere between 14 to 18 ahead, and the country's ridiculous. And anything outside of those genres, hip hop only does well if there's bottle service. EDM only does well if there's bottle service. But those are some good things to know too, right? If your
Interesting.
artist actually brings a drinking crowd, or the venue has bottle service, depending what genre it is, that gives you a little bit more leverage. And maybe not the first time, which sucks, right? Sometimes you might have to take one on the chin a little bit on the first time. But once you've done really well, you sold out, that should give you leverage because that venue wants you to come back. Like believe me, because if you sell out a 250 person venue, you have the option to go 350 or 400, not play that
Right.
venue again.
Right.
And that venue wants your show because what's their other alternative? Having an artist that sells 100 tickets, like they rather have 250 than 100, especially
Right.
with their drinkers. So just know that for you and for other artists out there, that gives you leverage when you bring a drinking crowd.
How often are you finding that venues will show you the drink receipts at the end of the night just so you can have that for your own data?
Very rare, and also will you see all the receipts, right? It's like there's 3 cash registers and you only see 2 receipts. I've even as a
Oh,
promoter,
really? Oh, that's
yeah,
lame.
even as an indie promoter, I've come across that. I was like, well, there's 3 registers, and like, oh, it's all in one. Sure it is.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my artist played another venue a few months back. This was a slightly smaller room. I think there was 180 tickets. And the venue straight up told us, I mean, this is a very indie venue. They were very new. They were giving really good deals to artists. And they were like, uh there was they had done more drink sales on our night than any night since
That's
they'd
awesome.
opened 6 months prior. And they printed out the receipts for us to show. They're like,
Oh,
just
that's sick.
use this. Like, this
Yeah.
is so cool. Like, you did more, and I think it was like, well, I actually want to do these calculations because,
Yeah.
like, with 180, you said typically is,
Rock could be anywhere from 8 to 12 ahead.
oh, it was higher. So we did $4,000
Oh, wow.
at the bar.
With
Uh,
180.
for 180 tickets, they did $4,000 at the bar. That's why they were like so excited.
That's great.
So what is that percentage? I don't know.
$22 ahead.
Okay, so there you go.
That's amazing.
So it was yeah, that was something where they were so excited, and we did higher than most did that. But it's like, then what do we do? Do we take this and be like, hey, by the way, we, because mostly when you're negotiating with venues, they don't really ask for that. That data is not
Right.
widely available.
Right.
So it's not like something we can say, well, hey, we sold 180 tickets at this last venue. Let's play your 250 cap room. But by the way, we did $22 a person in at the bar. Here's the receipt from that show. Can we, get, then what do you say? Because that's just not part of the conversation.
So that's where you can go in knowing that, right? So you know that. So now you could say, so then you do the math, like okay, 250 person venue, 15 ahead at the bar. So kind of, 15 ahead at the bar. That would be 3250, right? Is that no, or something like, let me see, whatever that math is. So 2500, 1250, so 3750, right? So you could go in and say, hey, your 250 cap, if your bar does 3500 or more, can we get $2 per ticket on top? So then again, you're not asking for the percentage, right? You're now just asking for that promoter rebate or something like that.
That's interesting. That's a good idea, because it's
and then when you throw
off their back.
And so when you throw a big number like that out, like 3,500 for a 250 person venue, they're gonna be like, okay, fine, or
right,
like 4,000, like okay.
That's a great idea. I should have done that. To say, right, that's a great idea. So saying like, we know our crowd are drinkers. If we do more than 3,500 at the bar, can we get an additional $2 a ticket or something like that?
Yeah. And then if you play there, and I mean, if you play there and they did really well at the bar, then you have leverage, right? So either when you go back in, work a better deal, or play a different venue. And sometimes it's better to play at a slightly smaller venue. I mean, 70 tickets, yeah, you're leaving some money on the table, but if they're giving you 80% of the door now because it was the most they've ever made at the bar,
right.
80% of 180 tickets might be better than 60% of 250 tickets. I don't know, I'd have to do the math, but if you keep all your merch also in addition to that, it's better to play there.
I mean, we would have gone back to this other indie venue. Unfortunately, they and here's the reality. Well, they didn't shut down because they had to go. They got essentially like kicked out by the landlord, or they had some dispute or something. So this venue lasted less than a year, and it was a great venue because this indie club that was trying to get more artists to play their club, they were offering an amazing deal. We got 100% of the door because they got 100% of the bar.
Right.
Which that makes the most sense to me. It's just like, okay, let the artist keep all the tickets, let the artist keep all the merch, you keep all the bar. Right. Easy. Like, we brought in a crowd for you of drinkers. Like, why are you taking a cut of all of this? The only way that we're able to make money here. Price your drinks at whatever you want to price them. We pack your club of drinkers. That split makes the most amount of sense to us. Everybody won on that night. That was like the best night they'd ever had in their existence. Their tiny 9-month existence that they did, and then they shut down. But it was like, it's a bummer. But it was like, all right, we did 180 tickets. We got to keep at like, it was $15 a head, so we got to keep 100% of that, which was fantastic. They did amazing at the bar. They did $4,000 at the bar, and so it was what is that, 15 times 180? We made 2,700 on that night.
It's awesome.
The bar made $4,000. Everybody's happy, and it's like, and then we did some merch, so I don't know, but venues don't do that.
Yeah. What are some? So I was going to ask you in a second is, what are some other expenses? So in the Lawrence testimony, he also talked about being charged $250 for towels, right? Which is something that can actually get waived really easily, especially if you're doing that kind of bar. Like, even if it's in your contract and it's $250, let's say you don't have an agent, right? First of all, agent should negotiate that away for you. If
Yeah.
agent doesn't negotiate
Well,
away for you, or you're doing
yeah.
it independently, and you know you have an artist that does really well at the bar like that, just at the settlement, like, hey, show sold out. It's a great night. You guys crush it at the bar. Can you waive that 250 on towels?
Yeah.
90% of the times, a good venue will say, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say. So yeah, well, there any other expenses that maybe like seem like questionable expenses? I have a giant list. I can
Well, the
go through
haze
some of them.
fee, that was the questionable expense that they were trying to tack on, the
Absolutely.
$50 haze fee, which I asked to waive. The $200 lighting design, the LD, I understand because I would
Yeah.
imagine that's all going to a lighting designer. So it's like if we don't pay for that, there's not going to be one there. And then the front
Right.
of house engineer, which is included,
Hmm.
they're just going to hit a preset at the start of the song
Right.
and then like kill it at the end of the song or something like
Hmm.
that. Um, so tell me your list. I'm curious what's on
Yeah.
your list.
So typically, so real quick on a bigger venue, the LD should be included, right? In the 40% that they take. So because
Oh,
typically
fuck.
this is a versus gross deal, and on a versus gross deal, that means any expense that the venue has is their responsibility, unless you ask for something in addition. That's why my camera keep going out. Unless you ask for something in addition that's out of the ordinary, like extra security or barricades or something like that. But so one thing to look out for too is when you're settling. Usually, when these bigger promoters, you're going to get a marketing packet, right, or an ad pack. Um, Make sure, so if they budget it, let's say I don't know, $500 to go towards digital ads. Um, Check that they actually spent 500, if not just that they're saying 500. I mean, and other thing too, when you're negotiating at settlement, right? If you're in percentage, or you're so if say you have a guarantee with a back end and or versus a percentage, and you're in percentage, then negotiate. If you have a guarantee and you're far away from percentage, don't bother, right? Because that's just being annoying. So if you're in percentage or you have a percentage deal, then yes, negotiate things, right? But sometimes you will see there's a $500 budget or $1,000 budget, and show sold out, and they actually only spent $400, but they'll still charge you the full budget.
Right.
So make sure they're not charging you the full budget, only what was actually spent. So make sure you have a printout from their Facebook ads, Instagram ads, whatever they ran, that
Yep.
says the actual amount spent, not the budget. Sometimes they're very clever with that, where you only see the budget column and not the actual spent column.
Right.
So that's one thing to look out for. Let's see. Usually not an issue if there's tax on rent. If it's a nonprofit venue or government owned venue, there should be no tax on rent.
What do you mean tax on rent? I haven't heard of this.
So sometimes there'll be a rent, right? So the one I'm looking at is a $5,000 rent, and then they charge
Oh,
you
that's like if a
sales
promoter's
tax.
coming in to rent the venue.
Yeah. Yep, yep. So if you're working with Live Nation AEG and they're coming into the arena or a theater that they don't own, they're technically the promoter, which happens a lot.
Get to
Even like
rent the venue.
even when I was at Dr. Phillips Center, like AEG and Live Nation and Outback did a ton of shows with us. So if you ever see tax on rent, if it's a nonprofit, if it's a city-owned venue or county-owned, state-owned, there should be no tax on rent.
Okay.
Let's see. Towels should always easy to negotiate away. Internet fees. If you ever get charged to use the internet or phone, waive that, right?
Wow.
They should not be charging you to use internet and phone. Let me see. I'm just going through the list of stuff.
Yeah, I've never heard of the internet fee.
Oh yeah, I bet bigger scale venues they'll charge you for this will be phone and internet as a fee.
Phone.
Yeah, phones
What are we
exactly.
in 90s?
I'm using my landline.
1994? What are you talking?
Yeah, and then they'll still charge you for it. Let's see. Stagehand spotlights, video. Sometimes you'll have variable rent. You can negotiate that, right? It's a variable rent, meaning it's a $7,500 rent versus 12%, whichever's greater. Have either you or your agent negotiate at least a cap to that rent before the show even happens, right? So it's variable, sure, but it gets capped at 10,000, for example. Or there's some venues that will just have an unlimited rent, right? Where if you sell out and your gross is $200,000 and the rent is 12%, then the rent is 12% of whatever the net is.
Wow, that's weird. This should just be
yeah.
a flat rent fee.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen rents that are like $25,000-$30,000 because it's variable.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Where the
That's
base
not
rent is.
really rent. I mean, that's a cut of the tickets essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Watch out for ticket printing fees, especially when it's all digital tickets.
Yeah,
Um,
that's like breakage in digital when
yeah,
you're like digital
exactly.
sales. It's like, yeah, we still have the breakage in the record contract. That was like back in the day, like, you had to account for breakage of vinyl or
Right.
cassettes or CDs, but there is no breakage when we're talking streaming, but they
Yeah.
try to slip that into the contract.
Breakage is a red flag.
Right. Okay.
um, things like credit card fees and taxes too. Like if credit cards get added on into your settlement, right? Just always go through the ticket buying process of your own show, right? See all the fees that actually get added on. So, for example, if taxes and credit cards get passed on to the customer, then they shouldn't be charging you for taxes and credit cards, right? So there should be no tax deduction and there should be no credit card fee in there as well. Also, you can always ask for a backup for credit cards. So let's say they charge you, I don't know, 3% of all sales for credit cards, right? Ask them for backup of how many of the sales from credit cards. So example, if your gross is 100 grand, they
Yeah.
charge you 3%, but only 80 grand of the tickets were sold by credit card. Make sure that you have a backup for that. So it's like what's the printout usually call. It's like a credit card reconciliation or something like that, or credit card audit. So I ask for a credit card audit to make sure that they're not charging on credit cards that actually weren't used, or
Cool.
for sales that actually credit cards weren't used on. Um, those are some of the main things. I mean, sometimes things like barricades can get negotiated away at bigger. As you're talking about bigger scale, right? When you have barricades, because the venue owns the barricade.
I
So
mean, yeah, I think the big takeaway is always ask,
yeah,
just to waive the fees. Like I asked to waive the haze fee and they said yes. Like they're not going to just do it without you asking. So I think
exactly.
whenever there's any fee listed as a line item, ask to waive it all or
Yeah.
negotiate that away. Or I love that idea of the promoter rebates or merch, the reverting the bumps at different
Mhm.
levels or the bar is at different
Yeah.
levels. Like those are really great ideas that um are good negotiating tactics that sometimes are no sweat off their back.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
Exactly. Especially the more successful your show is, the easier it is to negotiate these things. Like
mhm,
if you're sold out, if you're anywhere from 80% of capacity and up, you can probably negotiate most of the stuff, even if
yeah,
you're an independent, you're not working with a big agent. Um, Also on the merch thing, real quick. I don't know if this is a rule across the board for all Live Nation, but I know at least the clubs and theaters division, um, they shouldn't be taking a cut from recorded goods, right? So
right.
that's, and I think before you hit record, I asked you if it's a 10% from soft
They
goods or
said
recorded.
it's hard versus soft. So hard merch, they mean
Or
record like vinyl records, CDs, because anything that has like your music on it, that's hard
exactly
merch. And then
right.
soft merch,
Is
t-shirts, tote
hats,
bags,
hoodies, tote bags.
hoodies, whatever, anything that's not have recorded music. So I was saying like, well, let's just
Yeah.
embed like a USB into every t-shirt or say there's actually
it's
this
a
is
it's a
hard
hard
merch
good.
because you buy a sweatshirt, but that's at your album as a sweatshirt, I don't
Right.
know.
But also for all the artists out there, right? So yes, vinyl, CDs, right? Anything that's music is a hard good or recorded good.
Yeah,
Books should fall into hard goods because it's anything pretty much that's like, I mean
there's
technically
royalties involved.
yeah, I mean technically a logo on a t-shirt, right, could be copywritten, but I say as long as if there's like some kind of copyright involved, like traditional like I mean, again, even as using the word intellectual property, technically the logo on your shirt is intellectual property too. But anyways, CD like music, books, DVDs, all those things should be considered hard goods. So if the venue ever has a question in there, if you ask them like, hey, like you shouldn't be taking a cut from books then because they're a hard good, and the person that you're advancing with doesn't know, I'm like, just put your foot down. Like, no, there's no cut on books because it's a copyright material. There's royalties involved. You can mention that or whatever.
Right.
There should be no cut from that. So Live Nation venues typically do not take a cut from recorded goods. So knowing that, or hard goods, so recorded hard goods, same thing. So you could use that as leverage too, right? So let's say I've played a Live Nation venue, they didn't take a cut from my music. Can you waive the cut from the music at least, and then try to start working a revert version on
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna
soft
have to
goods?
figure out how do you do this when there's combos. It's like a record and a record is 25, a t-shirt's
Mhm.
25. But you do a
Right.
combo and you get both of them for 45 or something like that. Like, what do you do
Then
in percentage, I
take
guess.
the higher amount. So take it was 40, deduct 25 for the vinyl, and then
Yeah,
only give them a cut out to 15.
yeah, yeah.
So then you're kind of getting around away in a way to give them a less of a cut.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Is there any other advice or red flags you have for artists out there? Or anything else? Any
You covered a
last?
lot of them. I mean, the big thing that we didn't really talk about is like, this is when you're at the indie just starting level.
Mhm.
Don't pay to play. Don't
Yes. Yes.
buy tickets from the promoter and be on the hook to sell all those tickets and then pay
Yep.
the promoter what you don't sell. So
Mhm.
I think like we've this entire discussion has been the legit promoters at legit venues and all of the
Mhm.
challenges that legit venues and promoters are presenting to the artist teams.
Mhm.
When you're just getting started, especially in the big music hubs, but it's unfortunately we're seeing this everywhere.
Mhm.
There are non-legit promoters,
Yep.
there are shady promoters
Yep.
that will approach artists and say, would you like to play this hot venue, whatever? They rent the venue, and then they basically are like, all right, here's the deal. We're going to give you 50 tickets,
Mhm.
and you have to sell and you have to buy them from us at $15 a head or whatever, and you can sell them for $20. And so you can like keep whatever you make on these tickets. Now, if you really do the math, like that's a really shitty deal. You're only
Yeah.
making like what 30% or something, 20% of the tickets if you sell them. And if you don't sell them all, you're on the hook for all 50 tickets.
Mhm.
Um, that you purchased up front and you have to pay up front. So don't do that. And I've
Yes.
seen this, it's like not like you're buying physical tickets. It's like they'll set up an Eventbrite and they'll say
Right.
like, okay, every band, and you're competing against
Right.
other bands. If there's 4, 5, sometimes there's like 10 bands on the bill, which is absurd. And they like determine the time that you play in the night on
Oh.
whoever sold the most tickets. It's absurd and annoying. So like I would avoid those promoters like the plague. If
Yep.
anybody approaches you and they're like, "Oh, you want to play the House of Blues? You want to play the Viper Room? You want to play?" It's like, no. You can play those rooms by going directly to the in-house promoters or the
Yep.
in-house talent buyers if you can sell a number of tickets. Like it's
Yep.
not there's no point to play a cool room if you can't fill it
Yep.
just to say that you played the room. We are way past the era of saying, "Oh, I played the Troubadour." It's like
Right.
cool, but like, so what? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you sold 500 tickets. That's the headline, not I
Yep.
played the Troubadour
Exactly.
to 12 people that were there because I paid $500 or $1,000 for these tickets. Paid a promoter essentially. Like, no, the headline is I sold 500 tickets, whether it's
Yep.
at the Troubadour or at the Echoplex or where, it doesn't matter at the Roxy. It doesn't
Yep.
matter. If you sold 500 tickets, you sold 500 tickets in this
Yep.
market. That's the headline. Don't ever play a cool venue if you can't fill it just
Yep.
because, a promoter approaches you.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's a good uh I'll elaborate on this a little bit too. It's such a cool last thing to riff on. But never pay to play, right? Never buy tickets, never even pay a fee, right? There's some cool artist is coming and you really want to open, and yeah, it's $500 to open. No, don't do that. You're not going to get anything out of that. And as Ari said, never play a room unless you can fill it. It's even if you don't say I sold 500 tickets, it's much cooler to say I sold out. Nobody's going to
Yeah,
ask, well, what was the capacity? Like, no, I sold out. And the people that were there, they're going to say, we were at the show. It was packed. It was full of energy. We had a great time. You can
right,
have a sold out show at a 200-person club, and it feels way better than playing in an arena with 1,000 people there that holds 10,000 people.
right.
And artists will tell you that too from their experience and being on stage. They would rather play a packed club versus an empty arena or an empty cooler club. Um,
Totally.
so yeah, and those are not the legit promoters, right? Don't pay them. Run away. And one thing I'll add to the legit promoters, as you were saying, like AEG, Live Nation, Outback, even the legitimate venues, almost every single time, at least the big promoters, the venues maybe sometimes not they're smaller, but almost every single time they'll actually pay you to play, which what they should be doing, right? They're paying
Right.
you to work.
Yes.
So
Yes.
AEG, Live Nation, Outback will always give you a guarantee, and the legit venues will also give you a guarantee to play.
The bigger rooms.
The bigger rooms, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, often, yeah, yes. A versus deal or something like that. A guarantee
Mm,
versus a cut at the door. But yes, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Cool.
This was awesome. Where can people learn more about you, find a new book, and all that?
Yeah, wherever you buy books, literally every bookstore you can find. If they don't currently have it on the shelf right now, you can always order it from your favorite local bookstore. It's Chris won't be going to Amazon, but you can go to Amazon if you're not boycotting it yet. It is there. So you can find the book. Yeah, like you put on the screen, aristake.com is the blog. And that's kind of the hub for the Academy, for the book, for everything else. And then, yeah, find me on Instagram at Ari Herstand, or find kind of the more music business advice stuff at Ari's Take on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter.
Awesome. And then I've asked you this twice before. What's your definition of making it? So I'll use your question, which is similar. What's your definition of making it in the new music business?
Yeah, right. We have the same send off at both of our shows. I love that. Right. I honestly, it's if I'm able to make a living doing what I love, supporting the kind of lifestyle that I'd like to have, that's what it means to me to make it in the new music business.
Awesome.